I was born in the Bronx.
In the Bronx?
You've seen it on television? It's not true, it's a beautiful place. Not as beautiful as Antwerp. But
Yeah. Some parts are pretty nice in the Bronx. But, what about your father, your mother? Can you tell us a little bit more
yeah,
if you
sure,
want to?
yeah. My father was Palestinian Muslim, and he emigrated from the Middle East to Brazil in the late 40s. And he was a young man, a very, very young man. My mother's Brazilian, my mom is Brazilian Catholic. My parents married in Brazil, and like many people, believed America was the land of gold.
So your father actually immigrated twice?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
First to Brazil, as a child to Brazil?
A young man.
A young man to Brazil, and
yeah.
then... Okay.
And then from Brazil to New York. I am one of 5, I'm the youngest of 5 siblings, and all my brothers and sisters and I were born and raised in New York City. My father never graduated high school, and my mother did. And my 5 siblings and I all are all graduates of university and all have graduate degrees and postgraduate degrees.
New York City Commissioner of Immigrant Affairs, that's your official title, right? What does that mean? What do you do?
So I work for the mayor, Mayor Bloomberg, who's known pretty well, I think, globally. He, on his behalf, my job is to work with the immigrant communities in New York City. I gave you numbers of how many people live in our city. Nearly 40% of the 8.4 million are individuals who were born outside of the country. My parents came to New York, and I was born in New York. So I am what we call sort of the child of immigrants. So just my generation, that sort of first or second, as some people like to refer to them, in New York City, if we were to count the parent and that child, 60% of New York City are either immigrants or the children of immigrants. It is a very, very large number. So my job on his behalf, on the mayor's behalf, is to go out into communities, to understand communities, to work with communities, to help them understand that we want them to access city government. We want them to know what rights they have in our city. We want to know what their challenges are so that I actually come back and work with my colleagues in government so that we are better prepared to serve them. We are better prepared to serve the immigrant communities. We understand that many of the communities that have come to New York have come from countries where governments have failed them. And so government is not seen as the trusted source. It's different. We in New York really see ourselves as mediators for success for these communities. And so we go out to ensure that they understand that we want their children enrolled in our schools, that we have hospitals that are there to serve them, that if they're in need of assistance, be it public assistance or help with our police, there are ways for them to access those services.
So you're a mediator, you're saying, a go-between?
So I would call my job in 2 ways. One is I think I'm a facilitator, and I have a team of people who work for me. But we go out and we listen and we meet, and we know who community members are, what community issues are. We work very closely with community organizations, with faith-based leaders, with other institutions who are the people on the ground who can help us actually navigate some of the challenges and really help us do this work. So going out and meeting these communities and making sure they know about me, our office, and about city services. And so as we learn about challenges and we learn about opportunities. I then come inside and work with my colleagues in government around creating policies and programs on how do we facilitate better success and honestly successful integration economically, civically, and socially for our immigrant communities. How do we in New York City government, where we serve people and know that every day it's my job to do that, how do we fundamentally understand the needs of our immigrant communities to better ensure that we are creating policies that best serve them?
I'm sure we're going to be able to get some examples, some real examples also of what you're describing now. But just one general question, do you deal with all kinds of problems? I mean, cultural problems, economic problems, social problems, or is it limited to...
It's everything.
It's
everything from...
education as well.
Yeah, so in any given day, my challenge might be, here's a good one, that we have a Hindu community that wants to create a cremation center. That might be tomorrow morning. And then in the afternoon, we've had, unfortunately, a family where there was violence in the home, and the children, they're actually Mexican, if you will. This is a real scenario. It's a real day in my life. A family, the woman was a victim of domestic violence. She called the police came, they took the children now are in our public system. Those kids are actually not American, so we need to inform the Mexican government. We need to identify, right, so that's maybe 12 o'clock of the day. The third might be a health issue or a conversation around early childhood education. The fourth, hopefully I'm responding to emails. But it's everything and all things.
If 60% of the people living in New York are either first generation or second generation, then I think they're not considered to be foreigners anymore.
No, we don't use that word.
You don't use that word? What words do you use? I mean, what words
we call everyone a New Yorker. If you arrived yesterday, or 10 years ago, or 30 years ago, you are a New Yorker, and we are happy to have you. The idea that someone is a foreigner would mean they don't belong there.
And now you're not just using politically correct speak. I mean,
no.
This is really what New Yorkers are calling New Yorkers. I mean,
yeah. I mean, someone might call someone by their ethnic origin. There are terms that I think are the things that make me most uncomfortable is when someone, we don't use the word foreigner. It's not part of the English vernacular so much, to be really honest. What people might say is illegal.
Mm-hmm. If you're illegal.
So I say you're undocumented, right, because you're not illegal. Right? You might be unauthorized, but you're not, right? So my colleagues in government would never use the word illegal, right? Lots of people in the United States do, but in New York we try our best to never use that language.
You're here now for 2 days. Did you already hear the word allochtoon in Dutch? Allochtoon, literally it means from elsewhere, but we use it for people, not only people of the first generation of immigrants, but actually also for people, children, young people of the second generation, perhaps even for people of the third generation. Generally speaking, people often use the term allochtoon, which would, there's not really an English translation, I guess, but you don't have this kind of word.
No, because I was born and raised in New York, and I'm an American. And I'm a hyphenated American, so I'm an American Muslim woman, I'm an Arab American, I'm a Brazilian American, I'm a Latina. You can be any of those things, and
you
not.
can choose, actually.
I can pick on whatever day I want, and often do. The thing about New York, and fairly honestly, and to be honest, the thing about America is that you are a hyphenated American, and that is something that is quite real, because the experimentation of the United States was that we peopled our country. And people the US is a nation of immigrants, and New York City is a city of immigrants. And so we celebrate where people are from, and we celebrate where they are today in our country, in our city.
Hyphenated American, misschien heel even vertaald zou dat zoiets zijn als streepjes Amerikaan. Hyphen is het streepje, dus je hebt Irish American of Italian American, in de hyphen in between, dus streepjes Amerikaan. Hyphenated American is a kind of general term that's often used, but there is a category, at least, that also Americans use sometimes, I understand, like when they talk about foreign-borns. I guess that's more or less the same like first-generation immigrants, right?
Yeah. So so as I shared, we estimate that nearly 40% of New Yorkers are foreign-born, right?
40% foreign-borns,
yeah.
And 60% if you take the second generation.
Right.
That's all right. If you would have to describe the 60% in terms of their ancestry, their origin, their nationality, what would be the biggest groups that you...
So we're quite different than Antwerp in this regard. We have a very large Spanish-speaking community. Our great numbers of Spanish speakers come from the Dominican Republic. The fastest growing immigrant community right now in our city are Mexicans. We've got lots of people from Latin America, Colombia, Ecuador. Smaller proportions of Central America, but still existing in pretty sizable numbers. We have a tremendous community of Chinese. I already said we have 5 Chinatowns, it's true. We have a very large population of Chinese, and coming from different provinces at different times. We've got a great number of people coming from the Caribbean, our Caribbean. So Jamaica, the largest community coming from Jamaica. We have the 2nd largest community of Haitians outside of Haiti. We've got one of our still largest groups of immigrants are Italians. They're largely concentrated in the older category. They're not the young audience anymore. We have a very fast-growing community of Bangladeshis, but we have the South Asian community in sizable numbers, so Bangladeshi, Pakistani, Indian, and Russians. They were largely a refugee population that resettled in New York, so we have a very large Russian community. And we have a very large and very fast-growing West African community. But because our demography team counts by country of origin, if you were to count by country of origin, the numbers look quite small. But if we actually add all those countries together, it's a very large community. So the largest community of Liberians outside of Liberia is in our city.
On the part of the city, there's no intention whatsoever, no feeling that the city should try to stimulate a kind of ethnic or social mix. For the city, it's fine if neighborhoods are concentrated like that, if communities are concentrated like that in
yeah, I mean,
particular neighborhoods.
So the reason I would say that we are trying to create an ability for these communities to better get to know each other is because we know the success of a neighborhood has everything to do with the success of a community. And so what informs policy and what informs our success as a city is making sure that our neighborhoods are succeeding. And so we care a lot about having businessmen and women be able to work together. So we have an initiative in our city that has to do with economic corridors and small business owners. And so we create business improvement districts and business merchants associations. And those merchants associations are representative of all of the businesses. And that's a way that we think you see social cohesion at its best, right? Because these individuals have shared interests for clean streets, good business, no crime, good lighting. And so there's this opportunity to talk about this. In our schools, we have a commitment to making sure that parents are engaging with each other. And so we try our best. My office certainly has created an initiative around making sure that our immigrant communities are involved civically, because this is where we have seen the gap best, is that in this data of 60% of New Yorkers are either immigrant or the children of immigrants, that's not where we see power. Right? The decision-making authority in our city is not overwhelmingly immigrant. And so we have taken it as an administration, from the mayor's office, we have taken that opportunity to really enhance that conversation. So we've gone into neighborhoods to create neighborhood leaders, to get them to go through a leadership course together and have them get to know one another in these neighborhoods at a moment of opportunity, not at a moment of crisis. Individuals and communities tend to get to know one another at moments of crises. And quite honestly, that's not when you want them to know each other. They're too angry. Right? They're too upset about whatever the challenge is. And so we've recognized that bringing these folks together and sort of giving them the skill set on better organizing, grassroots fundraising, understanding government and civic institutions and their voice in those institutions, really allows us to see and hear them, hear each other, articulate that they care about good schools and they care about clean streets and they want better housing, or they want their real estate prices to go up. And so they start to see each other as allies in a neighborhood community development sense. We also care a great deal about celebrating the multilingual assets in our workforce. And so my office has actually, we in the city serve people in the languages they're most comfortably speaking. So English is not universal. In our school system, we translate documents into 10 different languages. every school building in the city of New York, we have 1,700 schools. Every school building in the city of New York has a poster that says welcome. And it says it, and then it says, if you have questions, you can visit your parent coordinator or your district family advocate, see the information below. And that's translated into 10 different languages. We want people to know that we are there to serve them. And so we actually took a survey of people in our city who speak languages other than English. And we said, how many of you would be willing to give us and help us when we need help? And so people came forward and we said, now we're going to test you. Because if we're going to serve people, we want to make sure that you speak the language very, very well. Because we never want to misrepresent someone's engagement, either in a translated experience or an interpreted experience. So we created, like the UN, a New York City certification program. We certified over 1,000 people. I think the number now is like 1,031 in 40-something languages. Those individuals each get a pin, and they essentially help us help New Yorkers, help us better serve New Yorkers. We translate documents, we interpret when needed. If a person isn't available, there is a phone number to call, but we are there. Our mayor strongly believes that in order for people to understand what is entitled to them and what we are asking of them, we need to speak with them in the languages they're most comfortably communicating in. And so we hold ourselves to that standard.
Do you advertise it in any way? I mean,
English is the spoken language, but I speak Spanish every day at my job, every day. I give speeches in Spanish. The mayor studies Spanish every day. We translate materials so that people can best understand services. And so the sort of working language that we work with is English, right? It is our mother tongue. But we don't say this is an English-only city.
No, but I mean, it could also be perhaps that the sign in English would be bigger than the sign in Chinese. And
sometimes it is.
Which would make it clear that it used to be an English city.
So here's an example. I actually shared with, during these past couple of days, some strategies that we use. And so I shared with you the posters in our school system. In our social services department, our department that provides public assistance and public welfare programming, we give every client that comes an I speak card. And in the front it says, I speak, and on the back it says Arabic, Chinese, Russian, Italian, Korean, Mandarin, and then it says other. And so, Haitian Creole or whatever, and someone can write it. If it's Wolof, they can write Wolof. If it's Tagalog, they can write Tagalog. If it's Portuguese, they could write that. Right? We would help them, and we would do that. So when they go to a service provider, they can automatically show that card, and that facilitates the exchange. The card is written in English. It says I speak, right? But it's understood that we are going to serve them in the language they're most comfortably speaking.
But finally, I mean, because you were also explaining about the civic classes and citizenship test, you have to learn English in order to get. It
is essential for integration, right? Linguistic integration is pretty critical, and so English helps a parent. So the best way that I can define the importance of English is a parent's ability to learn English helps them better navigate our city, better helps them confidently navigate our city, better helps them provide opportunity and assistance to their children. Overwhelmingly, there are better health outcomes, there are better economic opportunities, there are better employment opportunities.
When you become a citizen in America, you celebrate it. There is a citizenship ceremony, and I once had the opportunity to attend a ceremony like that with 150 people of something like 48 different nations all together on a Friday morning in New York City. I thought it was great, but that's required as well, right? Of course, in New York you have big groups. In a small city somewhere in America, you could perhaps have a ceremony of just 2 people. But in your view, what's the importance of this kind of ceremony? And then perhaps you should also describe a little bit how it works. It's
an incredibly moving experience. It could be in a room like this. It is a judge, a U.S. Federal judge who oversees the ceremony. He or she will issue the oath of allegiance, and so everybody is invited to stand up and pledge to the United States of America. Everyone is given an American flag. The president makes a message, so there is a recorded message where the president says, "Welcome, we are so happy that you have joined our nation. We will be better because of you." There's always some sort of guest speaker or something. And then we sing 2 songs. One is the Star-Spangled Banner, and then there is a song that drives some people crazy outside of our country, and some in our country. But we sing a song that is Proud to be an American. And it is a very powerful song about, literally the words are, "I'm proud to be an American because at least I know I'm here." And then it goes on to talk about the freedoms that we have. It is an incredibly, my parents both became citizens, and I never imagined, and my husband, and I never imagined what that experience must have been like until I experienced my first citizenship ceremony. And I will never, ever underestimate the power of a citizenship ceremony.
And people bring their family sometimes.
It's
and
incredible.
It's like a marriage, or it's like, they celebrate it really with their family. People are taking pictures. It's a big day for them, right?
Yeah, it's a moment in your life.
Here in Belgium, usually people go to the city hall and get a little paper, and then it's done.
I hope you throw them a party next time. They deserve it.
Now, you think it's important? I mean,
it builds a nationalism that cannot be understated. It builds a sort of pride that sort of is critical for us, but then critical for their children. Many of these individuals may be parents who have children who were born and raised in the U.S., and so now is this moment of sort of being able to sort of be one family. You know, the thing about being, unless you're an American, and I understand that you all don't use the word deport, we do, because people can be deported from our country, and many people are deported from our country. It's a big challenge, and it's a big debate, actually, right now. And American citizens cannot be deported. And so for us, it is incredibly important that people take that seriously. Because if something goes wrong in someone's life and you are a legal permanent resident, you actually can be deported. And you may own homes, and you may own businesses, and you may have a family. And all of that is lost. Unless you're an American, you have the right to be there forever.
Now I remember the ceremony I was referring to. I had the opportunity to attend. They were not only saying or celebrating the fact that it was not only about the Pledge of Allegiance, but the people, the masters of ceremony, not the judge, but there was a kind of migration official who was like the master of ceremony. And he was also saying, thank you for your diversity. You don't have to leave your own culture or your own language or your own traditions behind. Keep them. You'll still be who you are and who you always have been, but you're becoming an American as well, starting from today. And I thought that was very, very moving as well. I mean, it was not about becoming...
Leave everything behind.
Or trying to deny everyone's past.
It's that.
But that's
reality.
perhaps something only in New York. Perhaps if you go to a small city or a small town in.
I mean, you can land in Arizona as as volatile as it is. Though don't go there. You come here. We want your money. They're not so nice. Anyway, come to me. But you can go there. They do have beautiful mountains. And ask someone on the street, and they might be 5th generation Mexican American, and they will say, I'm Mexican American, and they celebrate what that means. It really is an opportunity to, and I'll say it again, we celebrate where people are from and where they are today. How do you recognize them as assets to to their new homeland? We actually say the term that's used for immigrants, so I'm the Commissioner of Immigrant Affairs, but many places refer to the newest immigrants as, for us, we say the newest New Yorkers, and in many parts of the country we say the new Americans, right? So the new Americans, so because we recognize them as that.
Mm. Now let's talk about perhaps the most sensitive issues, cultural issues, religious issues. I know that in the US are remarkably open for diversity, religious traditions. It's also a matter of the First Amendment, of course, so it's very hard to restrict anyone's religious expressions or freedom of expression. But are there no limits, no restrictions at all to a person's ability or freedom to express his or her religious identity?
So there's a couple of ways to become an American. American citizenship is granted to anyone born in the US. So someone could come on a vacation, which is common, and have a baby, and that baby is automatically an American citizen. And so they may go back to their country, but at the age of any time they want, actually, they get an American passport, they are American. They're welcome back into our country, to their country. You can also come into the country through lots of different ways. And become a legal permanent resident. And if you are a legal permanent resident, you have the right after 5 years to apply to naturalize as an American citizen. If you've married an American citizen and are a legal permanent resident, you can apply after 3 years. In order to become an American citizen, you need to be able to speak English and write English well. Unless you're over a certain age, then we actually forego that desire, so you have to be upwards of 70. And you have to pass a civics test, essentially an American history test, and then you are invited to become an American. And it's a pretty exciting.
But the list of the questions you may get for the test, you can look it up on the internet, right?
You can look it up on the internet.
So
you can go to a class.
Yeah.
We in the city of New York offer lots of classes. In fact, across the country, across the US, citizenship is a very big deal for us. So we offer civics classes across the country. You can today go home and type in US citizenship test and you'll get everything you wanted to know about the 100 questions you might get on the test. So it's available all the time, everywhere.
But these civic classes, it's not only history, American history, or I mean here in Belgium we also have inburgeringscursussen, which again it's difficult to translate this, but it would mean how to become a citizen actually. And they also take people to administration buildings and make them comfortable with, they help them to find their way in Antwerp or Belgium or Flemish society. Do you do those things, or is it only history, theory?
Right, so for the civics class, it's just history. It's just learning about American history. For what you're articulating, we, the government, don't do that, actually, but we rely on our community partners. The community-based organizations really are the folks who help our immigrant communities really understand and navigate services in the city.
But it's not required. It's how many, or what would be the percentage of people who would take such a course, or I don't know?
Oh, the civics classes?
Not the civics classes, the other thing you were referring
to. I think it depends.
Just a minority
sometimes,
problem.
yeah, and I think sometimes it's actually done. We'll have someone looking for public assistance or for some cash assistance for something, for housing, and an organization might send an advocate with them, someone who is their. The best word I could think about is sort of a social worker or a caseworker who will go with that person and show them how to get there, how to navigate the process. That was my first job actually out of college, so I did that for a couple of years. So it's a very common phenomenon to sort of accompany people on these appointments.
If you talk, for instance, about dress code, this is something we in Antwerp know all about it. Can a Muslim woman become a police officer with a headscarf?
Yes. Yes. We have police officers who wear a headscarf. We have bus drivers who wear a headscarf. We have city employees who wear headscarves. We have doctors who wear headscarves. We have teachers who wear headscarves. Yeah.
And could you imagine that there would be certain restrictions, certain limits? Would a woman be able or free to become or to be a teacher in a first grade class if she wants to wear a burqa?
So, I have to tell you that I didn't know the answer to that until I went to a school event. We had an event for parents who are parents of children who speak languages other than English, what we call English language learners, children who are learning English in the school system. We tried to bring all the parents together to help them better understand how we want to help them and their families succeed. So I go to this event every year to sort of welcome the parents and do things like this. We had all of these interpreters. The woman interpreting in Urdu was in a burqa. I have to tell you, I was completely surprised. Clearly it's possible.
But was this woman a teacher in that school?
She works in our school system. I'm not sure. She works in our school system. I'm not sure what role she plays, but she is paid by the city of New York.
And do you approve of that? I mean,
so now it's personal.
Yeah.
I actually think if this person has made a choice and knowingly is choosing to dress this way, then it would be unfair of me to tell her not to, number one, right? So that's the sort of responsible response. And if, of course, she's done nothing wrong and she's passed all of our screening tests and is eligible to do the job, then in fact I think it's a teachable moment. I think it's a moment of diversity, and it's a moment to actually use that as a teachable moment in our community, both for our families and for our children, right? Not everyone looks the same. Everyone is different, and how do we use that as a teachable moment?
What about the children? If we're talking about first grade children, 6 or 7 years old, is it fair for them to have a teacher in the classroom?
That's someone's parent. That is someone's parent. How is it that we would treat that child differently because their mother dresses that way? Why would it be unfair if that mother was a classroom teacher? Do unto others as you would like done to you, right? It's pretty...
Yes, but I mean, the children will be in a classroom and they won't be able to see the face of the woman that is going to teach them for a whole year.
They will understand the human dignity and special attention that this person can articulate and demonstrate, I imagine, every day in that classroom. If a blind person can't see the children, or if a blind child has a teacher and they can never know what that teacher looks like, it's an experience of understanding the humanity of who we are. Why take that away?
So, but you're not sure if a situation like this has already occurred. You were referring to the woman who was doing the translation, but you're not really...
I think we would... I know we have teachers who observe hijab, headdress, and wear it's not the burqa, I can't think of the term, the proper term, but basically the cloak.
Niqab perhaps.
No, just the cloak, right,
Okay.
where you're not dressed in sort of casual wear, but just, a jacket.
Let's take another example. There's a public swimming pool, and certain groups, perhaps not only the Muslims, also the Jewish people perhaps living in your city, they want to get, well, first of all, they want to be allowed, or they want you to allow their daughters to wear t-shirts or anything when they go swimming, and not just swimming suits, which is also an exception to the rules of the swimming pool. To wear a t-shirt, yeah.
Why? Who says you have to wear a bathing suit?
The swimming pool says. That's the
You should be dressed, no?
No, there are some rules and regulations. If you enter the swimming pool, there are certain things you can do and certain things you can't do. Certain things you can wear and other things you cannot wear. But then there is this community who is asking you to allow them to wear t-shirts. What would has anything situation like that occurred?
We let people wear t-shirts all the time, right? I mean, we let people who go into the pool wear pants, and the question here is, are you trying to facilitate access, or are you trying to prevent it? And I think that's a bigger question, right? If you really want people to have access to that opportunity, then you're going to figure out a way that mindfully is respectful to that community, but also mindful of sort of regulation. Now, if the law says you have to wear a bathing suit, then I think it requires some understanding, right?
Of what a bathing suit would be. How does the City of New York organize or facilitate the Muslim festival, the Sacrifice Festival? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we do that. Eid al-Adha. So we don't do that. I learned that actually you do that here in Antwerp. We, the City of New York, would not coordinate. We do lots of celebration of our immigrant communities, and the mayor annually hosts an iftar, Ramadan, during the month of Ramadan. We have a dinner at the mayor's home for leaders of the Muslim community. And the Muslim community does call to prayer inside inside his home, and prays. Actually, it's a very moving experience for the community and for the mayor, actually. But we do not do the sacrifice. That actually happens in communities. We don't facilitate it, and we don't do it.
Are people allowed to slaughter a sheep at home?
So we have lots of butchers and actual where you can go and pick your chicken, and I buy my chicken in the supermarket, so I don't know.
Yeah. And
I know that when I was a kid, my father would go, and my husband and I'm Muslim, if you haven't figured this out by now. We're happy to give money to someone to take care of it.
But I guess that somebody has already explained the situation in Antwerp.
I'm very impressed, actually, that is done. This might be sensitive. I think that there's probably opportunity to have a more, actually to probably figure out how to make money. The community should figure out how to make money out of this, not actually lose the city. But just from an economic development perspective, right, you could rent some space and do this, and not necessarily rely on city resources. I do think it's an incredibly good faith effort by the city to help accommodate this. But that's where I think perhaps, I would, if someone asked me that question as the Commissioner of Immigrant Affairs, I would say, I'm sorry, no. If someone said, we'd like to do this, I'd say no, but I'd call someone who runs a business that does this, and I would introduce them to help them facilitate this.
Have you also been told that with this Sacrifice Festival, actually it's an exception to the law, to the legislation? Normally animals, sheep, should be slaughtered with anesthesia. In this case, it's allowed for the Muslim families to do this without anesthesia. Actually, it's an exception to the law. Could you imagine something like that in New York? I mean,
we do tons of things that are crazily exceptional to the law, right?
Like for instance?
That's a finesse of law, right? It's all subject to interpretation.
Like for instance?
Nothing that I could point to. What do we do that might be an exception to the law?
I mean, you really, in this case, this is about accommodating a certain community with their specific...
But I bet that if there was a conversation, right, so if there's a decision that's been made, and I bet that if the city were more responsible in serving the community in different ways, the community would be happy to figure this out on their own, right? But it has to be that the city of Antwerp is going to be willing to help them in other ways, right? And so I do think, this is going to be, I think there's a money-making opportunity here, in that there are probably leaders in the Muslim community who could figure out how to make money out of this, right? And I think that the city of Antwerp could easily help facilitate that and back out of this. Now, I'm not suggesting that, so forgive me, everybody. This sounds like I'm going to cause a debate when this is over.
No, it's
my friends and colleagues. But there is.
Are you saying perhaps that the city of Antwerp is making it too easy for the
I
Moroccan
would never
community?
say something like that, because I think there are things you should be doing that I don't think are being done. And so I would love to push you, as another city, that there are better ways to facilitate integration, and there are better ways to celebrate your communities. And if this is one way that you thought that the City of Antwerp thinks is feasible, now I know cultural nuance, I grew up in it, I live it. I know the importance of how tradition really matters in immigrant communities, but I also know what respect and celebration can be, right? And I know that when someone looks me in the face and tells me that I care about you and your faith and your experience, and I'm gonna help you figure this out, then I know what's true and what's not true, right? And so I think that there is an honesty that can, and an engagement experience with the Muslim community that I bet could be far better than just accommodation. But we had the Muslim community in our city ask of the mayor to accommodate two school, our school would close on on Muslim school holidays, on Muslim holidays. So one day for Eid al-Adha and one day for Eid al-Fitr. And prior to this position, I was the senior advisor on education. I advised the mayor as the senior advisor, advising him on education. When that request came, it came to me, a Muslim woman with children in the school system. My responsibility as an official in government and as an advisor is to advise. And so we looked at what would that mean. With 1.1 million kids in the school system, we estimate that nearly 10% are Muslim. And we cannot estimate other than languages spoken at home, right? We don't ask people their religious affiliation, so we don't know. So the estimation is that maybe 100,000 kids in the school system would be impacted by this. And so my recommendation was that we do not add the school holidays to our calendar. What was an opportunity for us to realize was that the Muslim community mobilized and organized themselves in such a profoundly wonderful way that they felt American enough and a part of New York City enough that they would feel comfortable enough to come to the mayor of the city of New York and ask him if they can get recognized. And so we said, to displace 1 million kids and parents who have to find accommodation for those kids would be an undue hardship. With that said, we will look at the numbers and the data of the school districts and the school buildings your children go to. You can help us, and we will speak with those principals and those superintendents, and we will say to them, on those given days, please be mindful of attendance, no exams given, and no special events, no going on trips, right? We want to be, what do we want to do? We want to provide access and opportunity. It's not about undue hardship. Right? And being mindful about how do we create policies that do that, that was how we responded. Not everyone loved it, but people understood it. Because if we gave this community an opportunity, the next day, I had the Asian community knocking on my door saying, we want Asian Lunar New Year off. We want kids in school more, not less. We want people to feel part of our community, not less. And so how do we do that responsibly? Mark for our police and fire departments are that you actually have to be an American citizen. But with that said, we have a tremendously diverse police force. That's not the case. That this is actually this mayor and this police commissioner, and our commitment to community policing. Right? We think that when we have people who look like the communities in our city, we have a safer city, and it's true. So we've done a couple of things. We have this community policing program, which introduces people in communities to police to have better relationships. We've also started a youth explorers program. So we invite young kids, boys and girls, to join the police department for a summer youth program. And it's called the Explorers Program. And year after year, kids can come for a free summer experience. We also have a police athletic league. So the police department actually in communities creates programs to play sports with kids, officers and children. So that in itself is developing relationships that are breaking down stereotypes and barriers that are actually encouraging young kids to want to grow up to be like these guys and or women. So inherently that is, it's developing a role modeling, right? You're modeling career opportunities. It's not a surprise that we care about language. So the police department, to be very honest, has been very strategic in going into Muslim communities and in Arabic-speaking communities in our city and trying to cultivate positive relationships so that they can hire kids because we have a big anti-terrorism unit in our police department. This is very controversial, but it's true. And honestly speaking, parents, to be a police officer in the city of New York, you get paid well and you get great benefits. And so for parents, this is, I have 2 cousins who are police officers. You would think they were the president of the United States of America, the way their mothers talk about them. But it works, right? This is like, wow, they came to America and now he's a policeman. Oh my God, right? Okay, good, great. So it really makes a difference. And so the diversity piece is quite critical for us. And the way that we've strategically done it is through this youth development experience, through this police athletic league, and through a community policing program. We also are very loud about it. We do recruitment for police officers you have to take a test to become a police officer, you have to pass a test, you have to have finished at least 2 years of college. So you have to finish 2 years of college, you have to pass this test, you have to be an American citizen, you have to pass a physical, but then you can go through a very rigorous police academy, but then you become a police officer, or a cadet, then an officer. But during that process, I know that I have walked in communities, in neighborhoods in the city that are very immigrant heavy, and there are 2 police officers with a recruitment desk. Right? We also have this for our armed forces, for the Army, Navy. For us, it's voluntary. You're not mandated to serve in our military. It's voluntary, but people go and they try to recruit. They try to recruit young people. I have different opinions about that than I do about our police department, because that's employment, as is though our armed services. They come and they are trying to recruit from inside the community. Just to speak to the diversity in our police force, we have a Caribbean Law Officers Association, we have a Haitian Law Officers Association, we have a Chinese Law Officers Association, we have a Hispanic Law Officers Association. Right? They create these, what we call affinity groups, just so that they can sort of help support each other in this process. After 9/11, we did, in the city of New York, a great recruitment to recruit, as I shared with you, Muslim police officers. We have a Muslim Law Officers Association in our police department.
I remember 40 years ago or 30 years ago, I remember New York had a reputation of having a high crime rate.
Mm-hmm.
It was insecure to walk around in Harlem and the Bronx and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Has the policy, immigration policy of the city contributed to its present, or how has it contributed to its present reputation of being a very secure city?
That's a great question. I don't know if it actually is our immigration policies that have contributed. I actually think there were two real policies that have made a tremendous difference. Community policing, very, very big deal. The police commissioner and the mayor at that time went into communities and said, we cannot do this alone. We need your help, right? There are crimes in your community, we need your help. So essentially they created this opportunity where people in the communities would go through a training process and be auxiliary police. They don't carry guns, but they patrol. Right? We till today have auxiliary police. We have these young people, these explorers, they grow up to be auxiliary police. It's also a training for them to become police officers, right? That was a real, real benefit because it empowered communities to not be afraid. The other is a second theory that is quite popular, and people know it. It was during the Giuliani administration. It was a mayor before Mayor Bloomberg. It's a theory called the broken windows theory. So essentially, the theory is, if someone sees a window, if a car window is broken and it doesn't get repaired, some youngster might go, or someone will go, and break another car window. It starts to show demise in the community. So the idea was, every time a little small disruption happened in a community, we would respond immediately. So we respond to graffiti immediately in our city now.
That's zero tolerance.
It's zero tolerance. Is that your tolerance here?
It's a term that's also being used, but it's got a kind of negative connotation.
So for us, it was the theory behind it was broken windows. So it's made a big difference, right? So people, if you jump the turnstile in our metro once, you would be summoned. If you were caught writing, you'd be arrested. If you caught doing graffiti, you would be arrested. So it's that kind of stuff that really made people understand that they actually preferred being in a city that was cleaner and that it seemed safer. And over time, it just became the way things are. We have a lot of illegal guns in our streets, a lot. And my mayor is really, has very strong feelings about illegal guns because illegal guns are the actual things that are killing people. And unfortunately, the illegal guns are most highly found in communities of color and in low impoverished communities. And so we have a policing strategy right now that is called Stop and Frisk. Have you guys heard of this? I don't know, it's a huge debate in our city. Essentially, our police officers, if they think someone, what's the language? I'm trying to think of my politically correct term here. If they
Reasonably think?
Reasonably, thank you. Reasonably assume that someone might be involved in a gang or could potentially be party to a crime, the police officer has the right to stop, ask questions, and frisk. It's a possibility that this is happening to our young people in particular. It's a very big possibility that this is, not possibility, it's happening, to our kids of color. It's a very big debate. This past weekend, or in the past month, because of all of the complaints of community, our police commissioner and our mayor has said, slow down, right? Everybody stop it, slow down. We've had 4 shootings with illegal guns in the past 4 weeks. And all of the fathers or parents of these children and the spouses of the police officers have come together and said, you can't stop stopping and frisking. You're getting guns off our street. So it's a very interesting, because the impact in communities is fear. And it's happening in communities of color, where we have the greatest rates of criminality, actually. But as a result of us slowing down, we actually had a rise in crime. And so akin to zero tolerance, we're going to go back to implementing stop and frisk in a very rigorous way, because we have to respond to making sure we reduce crime in our community. It's very interesting. But New York is a much safer place. I grew up in New York City. I grew up in the Bronx. I already told you, if you've seen movies. It was not safe when I was growing up. It was not safe. It was not safe, I can assure you. It's a very safe place now. It's a very, very safe and wonderful place. Come and visit.
And they, as you already told us, they tend to, well, live together in the same neighborhoods. Is this a general pattern, or do you see this more with certain groups and less with other groups?
It's a general pattern. I mean, I think it happened when my parents came to this country. I think you know one person from your village, you might not even know who they are, but you heard maybe once upon a time that there was this guy who lived in this place, so you go looking for him. And so that's sort of how people sort of help each other. And quite honestly, it's still quite communal, right? Things are still done in this regard. So people come and they settle next to someone who speaks their language, who looks like them, who can understand, who could help them with their child, who can, do all of these kinds of things. So I think that's actually a big impetus. We don't divide that. We allow that to be the reality. I will have.
You don't see it as a problem, you mean?
Never. No. Because you ride bicycles here, we ride trains, right? In order to do everything in our city, you take a subway, you take the metro, and everyone takes the metro. And so at any given point, all of us are walking up and down the stairs together, we're standing next to each other, you're buying your coffee, you're getting your newspaper, you're getting your dry cleaning. It's the part of who the city is. You're eating your food, they're cooking your food, they're taking care of your children, they're the people serving you in the hospital, they're your doctor, they're your teacher. It's who we are, and we don't see it as a problem.
But the result is also that you also get schools that are not very mixed.
No, not at all.
Not at all?
No.
I mean, if your children are growing up in a Chinese neighborhood, they will be in the classroom with Chinese children?
It's an amazing thing. We have neighborhoods where there is, presumably, where we do have a Chinatown. You go into the school and it's not all Chinese kids, right? Because amid this are families from Ecuador, Mexico, American families, sort of, many generation American, so white, if you will, presumably, you know, someone who came through Eastern European, whose great-grandparents came through, who were European.
Are you saying then that neighborhoods always...
They're metamorphosizing all the time. They're always evolving.
They're evolving, but also they perhaps look more mono-ethnic than they actually are?
Yeah.
They're more mixed than you would think?
That's right.
Yeah?
Yeah. So Little Italy today...
Yeah, that's a touristic...
it's just a tourist site right now,
yeah.
but overwhelmingly it's a neighborhood that is filled with a very diverse audience of people.
Mm-hmm.
And time again. And the other thing that's very interesting is immigrant communities tend to move in to where there is already a successful network, right? And so, ironically enough, the Russian community has created a very successful neighborhood. The South Asian community, the Pakistani in particular, for some reason, they moved into that neighborhood. So now that neighborhood is very interestingly Russian, Pakistani, and now we have a very fast-growing Mexican community, and they're all in there together.
Yeah, neighborhoods really change and evolve, and I mean, what used to be Little Sicily could tomorrow perhaps be little Kabul, or
That's right.
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's how it goes. You were saying that we think that a neighborhood is strong if the community is strong, and sometimes a community is strong if it's...
I actually think it's strong. A community is strong if the neighborhood is strong, or both actually.
Oh, yeah. But so that means that actually I mean, we still use the word, and it's an American word actually, the word ghetto, and it's got a negative sound, of course. And we think of neighborhoods when you see too many people of the same background, the same cultural background. We tend to call it a ghetto, and it's not something very good. Totally. I mean,
don't do that.
Totally stop doing that. Using the word ghetto.
No, nothing should be called a ghetto. You're prescribing its future, right? If you start talking about neighborhoods and communities for what they truly are, which is beauty, right, then people will believe in that, right? You call something ugly, it's going to be ugly, right? You call something a ghetto, it's not going to be celebrated, right? You want to, it's marketing, right? This is not hard stuff, right? You have to allow people to believe in what they have come in pursuit of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we in New York really look at the immigrants as a striver. You start from that premise. They have come in search of opportunity. These are resilient people who have already made a choice to leave what they know so well to come to a new place where they probably understand they're going to get discriminated against, where they don't speak the language, where the odds are against them, and they overcome time and again. And so they truly deserve the honor of being recognized as that.